instructional materials, in addition to textbooks, are available to today's teachers in great profusion and from a variety of sources. All of these instructional materials have in common the fact that they are ready prepared, that they are in finished form when they reach the classroom. Now, this fact presents some advantages and a few minor problems as well. One important advantage is that careful planning and research have usually gone into their production. These materials are intended to meet, as nearly as possible, the needs of great numbers of students and teachers all over the country, and not just of your class alone. As a result of this research and planning, and because the requirements of teachers and students are similar, ready-made materials are often used just the way they were intended to be used when they were produced. The very abundance of instructional materials available today requires that teachers develop professional skills in adapting finished product instructional materials to the ever-changing and so never-finished needs of their students. As AV coordinator for this Instructional Materials Center, I've had an opportunity to observe teachers who have brought imagination and professional artistry to the task of adapting instructional materials to the needs of their students. Let me show you an example of what I mean. I won't mention the teachers' names. In every case, they would probably deny they had accomplished anything out of the ordinary. But a look into their classrooms might prove differently. This is a class studying the conservation of natural resources. Do you remember when you studied conservation? Did it seem to be a far-off matter for farmers or foresters, but of no concern to you? Not so in this class. Using a simple soil testing kit their teacher obtained, these youngsters are testing samples of soil from their own lawns. The depletion of soil minerals is a matter of personal concern for them. The materials selected by the teacher for the bulletin board help reinforce personal concern. Personal concern for forests by those who have taken student polls to determine that 4 out of 5 members of the class live in housing made of wood. Personal concern for water resources by students who have checked back on their parents' water bills to see how much use is made of this vital resource in their own homes. Personal concern for wildlife by those who may be the conservationists of tomorrow. Perhaps the most stimulating material which the teacher of this class selected, though, came from the hometown newspaper. The city council had instigated a program of tree spraying to control Dutch elm disease. But when certain citizens became alarmed by the effects of the poisonous spray on birds, pets, possibly even children, newspaper articles reported the pros and cons of continuing the spray program. Here was a facet of conservation right at their own doorsteps, and the selection of the timely newspaper articles inspired discussions of conservation in the classroom, as spirited as any which took place before the city council. With interest in the subject of conservation at a high point, the teacher now made use of the strong emotional impact of the motion picture. She selected the film Irrigation because it brought up another aspect of conservation in terms of its impact on people.
A valve is opened and water flows from the canal into a ditch alongside the field. This is one method of flood irrigation. Water is transferred from the ditch into the field through individual pipes or siphons. The water, once it has been introduced into the field, follows the slope of the land as it flows along the rows of crops. Millions of acres of previously unproductive land are now cultivated profitably where irrigation is practiced.
Of course, films may be chosen by the perceptive teacher for the very reason that they are factual, bringing together information needed by all the group at one time. If the need for information projected on a screen is clear-cut, the teacher may still have the choice of choosing film strips or motion pictures, adapting one or both to a particular purpose. In alerting shop students to safety practices, which is more effective? A film strip devoted exclusively to rules for safety, or a film concerned with all aspects of using certain tools? A film strip frame can be held on the screen as long as necessary, while teacher and students discuss the rule involved. But a motion picture may graphically illustrate safe handling of tools. although the film was not primarily designed as a safety film.
It includes sharpening your chisels and keeping them in ready-to-cut condition. Inspect your chisels visually. Learn how a well-sharpened chisel looks and cuts. Your woodworking job is easier and more enjoyable when your tools are cared for and used properly. And, of course, this contributes to a more professional-looking job. This dado joint, for instance, is being cut with a chisel that is right and ready for the task.
In this case, the teacher adapted a techniques film to a safety lesson by asking students to note safety principles during the viewing and by guiding the post-film discussion into the area of safe handling of tools. He did so because of a tendency of this particular age group to regard safety rules in themselves as kid stuff, while good techniques tying safety into a grown-up skill were much more acceptable. The teacher considered both the needs and the attitudes of his students to find the best way to get his message across. As a film, or even a portion of a film, may be adapted to suit your particular purpose, so may models or ordinary household items be fitted into educational uses. Here, let me show you. Here are some familiar items, not specifically intended for classroom use, which nevertheless make efficient working models. Watch how effective these things can be in the hands of an elementary science teacher, introducing the principles of atmospheric pressure.
But you see, up here, all around, there's air pressure pushing down on the water. Now, what do you suppose would happen if I were to take the air out of this tube? Can anybody answer that? Candy?
The water would be pushed up here.
Well, let's take some of the air out of this tube and see if that happens.
Working models need not be expensive or elaborate, for the world outside the classroom is full of working models, full of articles which can provide vivid demonstrations or experiences, if an ingenious teacher but modifies their application to the lesson at hand. Of course, some materials require little or no diversion from the purpose for which they were originally intended. You adapt them only in the sense that you determine whether they warrant the attention of your students. A commercially sponsored pamphlet series on health, for example, provides interesting resource material for a health education class. The pamphlets are accurate and contain no advertising matter other than the company name. Auxiliary materials such as this are often provided by the thoughtful teacher in helping her students research and write special reports. On the other hand, commercially sponsored booklets and brochures which do stress particular products can be used to give the teacher ideas in other fields. This illustration in a book on color film, for example, was adapted to a flannel board display by a home economics teacher, astute enough to realize that the color principles involved, the apparent change in intensity and value of a hue because of the color surrounding it, would be an ideal way to bring home to her students the importance of choosing appropriate accessories for their costumes. Here's an Audio Plus visual resource, which in some cases takes more of the student's time than he spends in the classroom. TV has helped make our students much more knowledgeable than any generation of students before them. Students should be encouraged to watch worthwhile programs, and one adaptation of this medium might consist of encouraging students to write a rebuttal or to present a viewpoint different than that presented on the program. One of the newest and most effective teaching tools which progressive teachers can adapt to the needs of their students is a technique called programmed instruction. It may be employed by means of specially planned textbooks, as it is here. Or programmed instruction may be presented in any of several kinds of instruments, commonly called teaching machines, which range from very simple devices to complex electronic apparatus. Whether in book or machine form, the unique feature of programmed instruction is individualized teaching. A learner is presented with information leading to a response, and the student can check the accuracy of his response immediately. Having one's responses immediately confirmed if right or corrected if wrong is the essence of effective learning, and the rapid learner and the slow learner can absorb all of every lesson. Each student moves at his own rate, as if he had a private tutor to guide him, a fact which delivers a highly adaptable tool into the hands of the classroom teacher. For she can use programmed instruction to extend the amount of material presented to gifted students, or she can use programmed instruction as supplementary material. Programmed instruction can be used as an introductory unit in an area, or under special circumstances, it can be used as the basic material for an entire course. Proof again, as if any of us needed proof, that the teacher's judgment plays the major role in adapting any instructional material. The teacher's knowledge of the needs of her students may lead her to use many materials. For instance, let's consider the use of sound. You are well aware that the strong rhythm of music can be an aid to perfecting rhythm in exercises in the physical education class, as well as in the beginning or advanced typing class. But music simply to be listened to, good music, artistically performed, can serve as a performance goal for student musicians.
All right, now let's see how we sounded on the one we did yesterday.
All sound isn't music, of course, any more than the adaptation of sound devices is limited to musical instruction. Records and tapes are on hand in our Instructional Materials Center for use in foreign language classrooms. Usually, they're employed to aid students in learning sounds and structures of a foreign language, but not always.
Je finis mon travail dans ma chambre.
Chez moi.
Je finis mon travail chez moi.
À la maison.
Je finis mon travail à la maison.
The teacher here has adapted the tape to a testing situation. Whether the test is on comprehension and translation or on ability to write and spell in the new language is incidental for us. The noteworthy fact is that an alert teacher has used a teaching tool in a way that would best serve the needs of his group. Making such decisions, of course, is the hallmark of the professional teacher. Back in the days of the Little Red Schoolhouse, hardly more than a generation ago, the teacher at the front of the classroom had a blackboard, a textbook, and few other professional tools. But, as we have seen, all of this has changed. Now, teachers have many tools to choose from. We have seen examples of some of them in this film, but we have also seen that it's the skillful use of professional tools that marks the professional teacher. This teacher adapted the use of a commercially prepared soil testing kit to help relate the generalized study of conservation to the student's own hometown. We saw, too, how an industrial arts teacher decided to use a film instead of a film strip as the best means of influencing his students to observe safety procedures in the shop. Another teacher's professional insight added new dimensions to simple dime store tools in eliciting genuinely interested responses from her students. Some teachers get useful ideas from commercially sponsored materials, such as pamphlets, using them, for very good reasons, quite differently from the way one might have expected. With TV programs, we can adapt for our students by asking them to develop their own points of view about ideas expressed in the programs they see. While still another teacher used a commercially produced recording as a model, a goal for this school orchestra, compared immediately afterward to a recording of their own performance. Programmed materials also provide opportunities to adapt. Sometimes the same items will be used with different students for different purposes, for a review or direct teaching. Even in the case of recorded language instruction, we could see differences in utilization of the same materials, which were the result of differing purposes. Some of the means of adapting instructional materials we have discussed are in reality cross-media approaches. In these cases, the various media are used interrelatedly to strengthen their total contribution to the learning process. But even here, the teacher's professional judgment and insight are necessary in the selection and utilization of these materials. My job as audiovisual coordinator of this center is to help all teachers find and use these and other instructional materials in effective ways. Obviously, my job is closely related to your work. Your job, as mirrored in the responses of your students, involves all of the challenges and rewards of adapting instructional materials to meet your needs.